Hi, good night, guys. Welcome again to Canute Consulting Live, a knowledge based platform focusing on sales, business news and trends, public relations, sales development. And tonight we're going to be talking about a very critical topic that's on everybody's mind: energy and energy management. We're streaming live from Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitch. Canute Consulting is a full sales services consultancy company providing support for customers and clients in North America and the Caribbean. For more information on our company, please visit our website at www.canuteconsulting.com. Tonight, I have two very esteemed guests, two subject matter experts that are going to be talking to us tonight about energy, energy management, and are we actually in an energy crisis? That's a question we'll get answered tonight. Both are joining us from Connect Critical Infrastructure Solutions based out of Jamaica. And I'd love to introduce my first guest, Tashana Braham, Chief Operating Officer of CCIS, and Dwayne Watson, CEO of CCIS. Good night again. So, Tash, I'm going to turn over to you first. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself, your professional experience, and what you bring to the table.
My name is Tashana Brennan. I am the COO here at CCIS.
Mhm.
I I work in the finance area. I control the finances as well as the operations of the company. We we do energy management and Jermaine, I'm gonna ask for Dwayne to go first while I
Sure, no
compose
problem.
myself. Thank you very
We're
much.
gonna hand over to Dwayne.
Yes, we're gonna hand over
Dwayne,
to
just
Dwayne.
introduce yourself to our audience and a little bit about yourself and your company, of course.
Thanks, Jermaine, and good evening or good morning, wherever it is that you're tuning in from, and welcome. So, my name, as Jermaine mentioned, Dwayne Watson, and I'm the CEO for Connect Critical Infrastructure Solution. For me personally, I've always been, for want of a better word, obsessed with energy and energy management. How it is that you can save, how it is that you can be more efficient, and that itself is something that I try to bring to our organization and by extension to our customers and partners. And the topic that Jermaine has mentioned is very very relevant to the times that we are in now. And I think we can all agree that the next couple of months over the next year, it's going to be very critical to our lives, our companies, or even our country, our community. So it's going to be a wonderful conversation.
Thank you so much, Dwayne. So, energy consumption in terms of the cost of energy in the Caribbean has always been something that we've always had an issue with. I believe, and you're the expert here, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the cost of energy in the Caribbean is usually higher than other parts of the world. So, we're already competing against higher costs. We now have to look at our consumption and our management. For the persons joining us from Jamaica, we all know how this feels. We all know the high cost of electricity in Jamaica and other parts of the Caribbean as well. North America, specifically the US, the cost of energy is a little bit lower. So, management is not so much a big deal. Now, a lot of persons have said, and I'll go back to Dwayne on this one, that we are on the verge or we're living in the verge of an energy crisis because of what's happening in Europe. Oil prices have increased exponentially over the last couple of weeks. Are we approaching or are we in an energy crisis globally?
Actually, I don't think we are in an energy crisis globally. I think one of the problem is more the type of energy that we have and the type of energy that we use generally. Now, for much of us here in the Caribbean, we rely a lot on fossil fuel. But if you were to shift to some countries like, say, Sweden or even Costa Rica in the Latin American side of it, they have embraced renewable energy significantly, whether it's wind, whether it's solar, hydro. So I don't know that they are seeing the crisis as we are seeing it, we who are more dependent on fossil fuel. And you mentioned even in the States, a lot of governors and representatives have been saying we should probably consider nuclear power. So
Yep.
is it a crisis? Not, I wouldn't say that it's a crisis. It's a concern, definitely. The energy that you use and how you use it, definitely a concern. But I wouldn't say it's a crisis.
Okay, Tashana, what's your take? Just kind of dovetailing into Dwayne's response now. What's your take on energy global in terms of where we are today versus say 5 or 10 years ago?
Well, Dwayne says that we're not in a crisis, but I kind of feel like I am. Maybe because I'm living in Jamaica and we depend on the petroleum for the fossil fuels.
Of
I went
course.
to the gas station last week, Wednesday, and the line
Mm-hmm.
was ridiculous because the price is going to increase on the Thursday. And due to
Mm-hmm.
the Russian Ukraine situation, we knew it was going to go up. So from where I sit and the bills that I see and how they continue to rise, it does feel like we are in a crisis. But sitting in a company that does energy monitoring and management, there are ways to curb how it is that we use those energy in order to for it to be more of a concern than a crisis. But I can see how individuals can view it as a crisis right now.
Okay, understood. Um, so I wanted to ask a questions from a KPI perspective, Dwayne. What KPIs should be commonly used to measure system performance in terms of being efficient with your systems? What KPIs should businesses out there should be looking at?
So for businesses, and I'm going to use businesses and specifically commercial buildings. Um, Utility companies will tell you, most utilities company will tell you that the larger consumer, the lion's share of what consumes energy in any commercial building is your HVAC. So you want to make those systems as efficient as possible. Sure, you can do the changing out of the LED lights. Every bit counts. Definitely, every bit counts. But some of the things that you have to watch, you have to look at your usage, and you also have to look at the things that do consume energy, how efficient they are. To give you an example, and I've seen it numerous times during consulting with companies that have, they say, hey, the energy bill is high. Sometimes you walk around the office and you see an office AC is blasting, nobody's in it. Why is it blasting? Oh, but I just went around here for 5 minutes, and then that 5 minutes turn into an hour and you don't come back. So some of the key things that you want to look for is you have what you have already, and you don't always
Mm-hmm.
can make it more efficient. You don't always can change out all the equipment, especially the larger you get in terms of an organization. But one of the key things that you look at is your usage. Sometimes you also walk around the office and you see people in jacket. If you're in jacket, that means you're cold. And I understand with the ladies, sometimes it's a part of the outfit, but you can really tell the ones that are really cold. If it is that you're cold, then the temperature is too low, and the lower the temperature is, it's the higher that energy costs. So there are some simple things, and I think the best place to start is with usage.
Okay. I want to go to Tash on this one. What industries do you or verticals do you see in the Caribbean that are more open to energy efficient ideas? I know in you guys' business, you talk to business customers all the time, specifically commercial customers, as Dwayne said. What verticals do you see in terms of your business model are the verticals who are always more open to energy efficient ideas?
Well, I was actually talking to Dwayne about this today, and one of the industries that we see, the industry that we see that's really putting out an effort is the banking industry. So they're putting things in place in order to reduce the heat that's coming into their building, and the closing down of some of the brick and mortar locations that may not solely be for energy management, but it does contribute to it. um, and there are some well, there's also the hotel industry that I see some improvements as well.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
When it is that you go into a room or you come out of a room or you open a door, when it is that you're at a hotel now, the AC automatically turns off or turns on when it is that you come in. So some of those key KPIs, like Dwayne said, is and managing the usages. I see those in those two areas.
Okay, great. Dwayne, what type of IT solutions um, are available through your company that can give businesses the level of granular data that you're talking about? Because you spoke about usage and managing usage. What solutions do you provide to businesses, commercial or otherwise, that will give you that granular data in terms of the visibility of your energy consumption?
That's an interesting question, and a lot of people, they'll see the bill and they say, "Well, I can't do anything about it." But what I've always said to the IT managers, the facilities managers, and more so even the building owners, is you can't manage what you're not monitoring. It's one thing to wait until you get the light bill at the end of the month to say, "Oh, I have $1 million to pay to JPS or whichever utility company is." But you have to be monitoring first and foremost, where is that energy being used?
Hmm.
I know for a fact that air conditioning will consume a lot of it, but then you start to look at BPOs. There are a lot of PCs, a lot of computers. So you start to see the shift from industry to industry. But along the way, no matter what, I think monitoring is always the first start. And then once it is that you start to identify where that usage is coming from, say it's the HVAC, for example, you maintaining your HVAC just by simply washing the condenser coil outside, which is the dirty bits, can save you 15-30% on your energy bill that is
Well,
dedicated to your HVAC. And that's just
that's a
by
lot.
regular maintenance.
That,
And
that's a lot.
it is. And but a lot of times, especially in times like now when we're just coming out of a pandemic, people say, okay, I don't have money to do everything. Where do I cut money first? And you cut it and say, all right, instead of maintaining it every 4 months, let me try to do that once a year or only when it is that it break down. So you save the money there, but you see the cost start to go up on your energy bill and you wonder why. So you start to monitor first, and there are some small low hanging fruit that you can do. But what we try to do is always to start with the monitoring. Look at where it is that that spend is going, and then we take it from there. And that solution can either be a OPEX or a CAPEX solution. You monitor it over time and you make changes, or you own it so that as you make changes in year one, year two, year three, you can track those savings, not just through the utility company, but on a granular level. Your HVAC, your light, your elevators if you have them, your
Hmm.
computers if you
Hmm.
have them, stuff like that. But it can be done, and it's something that over the past 2 years, we have seen a lot of growth in that area.
Okay, great. From a person, I know we spoke a lot about business customers and clients. That's your primary vertical. That's what your company focuses on. But from an everyday person such as myself or Tasha or anybody joining us. And by the way, for the persons that are joining us live, if you have any questions, please, we want to hear your questions. We want to hear your concerns. We want to have an interactive session. So please drop your questions and your comments, please. Thank you. But what tips do you have for somebody like myself, somebody like Kashana, and for the persons that are live?
So it still does go down to the same set of things. So, for example, air conditioning. One of the things that I tell people separate and apart from air conditioning is your refrigerator. Your refrigerator might be the only thing in your house that runs 365 24/7. If
Hmm.
you're on vacation, it's still running. If it is that you're at work, it's still running. When you're sleeping,
Hmm.
it's still running. You turn off your TV, you turn off all of that. And a lot of times we go to the appliance store and we say, okay, I want a refrigerator. Oh, this looks nice. It looks big. Oh, but it's cheaper than the other one that's also the same size. But what you find is that one is probably more efficient than the other. So
Hmm.
those are some of the key little things that you look on. Whether it has an Energy Star rating, for example, that will say, okay, this is how much it will consume over this period of time on average. You look at some of those things. You look at the temperature that you set it at, because some of the time if you're like me, sometimes I like would visit my relatives, my grandma and so, and you go in just the refrigerator section and you'd see a cup in there or a bottle in there and it's ice cold, it's filled with ice. Why? Because the temperature is set really low. It's not necessary. You want it to be chilled. You don't want the food to spoil. So there are some little bits and pieces, and it starts with using the more sufficient appliances. You also want to select items in terms of the settings that you can adjust that on a granular level. And to give you one other example, I had a friend of mine who had a Airbnb, and they rent out the Airbnb, and it had air conditioned units in it. And I told her, get the most efficient AC you can, because people will come in, they'll leave the AC on, and they'll go on about the business. That's not something that you have no control over, but you're the one who's going to pay the bill. So if
Mhm.
you had the most efficient equipment that you had, whether it's the refrigerator, as I said, or the air conditioned unit, the stuff that pull a lot of power, those are some of the things that you want to make as efficient as possible from the
Uh,
get-go. Make the sacrifice in the beginning, it will pay off.
mhm. I actually have a story, a personal story I want to share since you mentioned the Airbnb. So I used to operate an Airbnb
Ah,
property myself, right? And of course, the AC is always a big concern. Now, I did two things that I believe was smart on my part. One, I got a digital door lock, meaning I'm able to see
yeah.
when someone goes or leaves. And secondly, I got this little device. I don't remember the name. The name of it was very cheap. It was probably 60 or 70 US dollars that you
Hmm.
actually connect to the AC unit itself, and you're able to essentially monitor the AC, see when it comes on, remotely turn it on and off, and
Hmm.
also you can set hourly reminders to turn it off. And when there was this big show in Kingston, and this guy was it was the popcorn show, and this guy
Hmm.
came and he said, "Hey, I'm from out of town. I just want a place to stay for the night. I want to go to the popcorn show in St. Thomas." I said, "Sure,
Hmm.
no problem." And I'm telling you, Dwayne, the guy checked in around probably 4 o'clock in the evening.
Hmm.
He turned the AC on and he left the
For
apartment
sure.
around 9 o'clock for the show, and he left the AC on and he did not come back. For the persons who went to that show, there was a massive traffic jam to come back into Kingston. So that guy didn't make it back to Kingston until probably maybe 7 o'clock the next morning. Now imagine if I didn't have that system to turn it
Yep.
off immediately, that unit will be running from pretty much 9 o'clock in the night right back to 7 o'clock the next
And
morning.
nobody is there. And who
And
knows? Probably
nobody.
even the door is left open inside the house, so the entire house is being, So
Yeah.
yeah.
So I have a question here from a
And I
direct
think
message from someone. Go ahead, Tash. Go ahead.
no, I was saying that those devices, I think there are those devices that you can connect to a lot of your appliances in your house that you can turn on and off from your phone if it is that you have the means to do that, because not everybody can change out your fridge right now or your AC, or if it is that you even have an AC. But the small things like ensuring that you have your LED lighting, as opposed to, I don't know what the other lighting name, the light that you used the long time ago. Some of those small changes you can make right now, in order to manage that energy in your personal space.
Yeah.
Yeah, great point. I have a direct message question here. What are you guys' thoughts on solar?
Excellent
Want
question.
to, who wants to take that one? Dwayne, you want to take that one?
Yes, and it's very interesting because I had a conversation with a business partner for us who does solar, and they're looking to do a massive solar farm in the country in the coming months. And the cost of solar has significantly come down over the past 3 4 years. The technology has been way advanced. Solar is always a good thing. One of the bigger challenges with solar, depending on where it is that you live, naturally, if you live in an apartment complex, it might be a little bit more challenging. But wherever you have the space, solar is always a quick way to reduce your energy. And more people are doing it. And you would think that it's the people who, I would say, can't afford it or would want to make those conscious decisions. But you find that people who you would think that, yeah, they can afford that big light bill. No, they want to save. And solar
Sure.
is always a way to go. And the return on investment, you spend $10 and you save that in your light bill in some cases less than 5 years.
Okay, I was about to ask that question in terms of how soon can you see a
Yeah.
full return on buying solar panels. Solar panels is something that people talk about a
Yeah.
lot. Here in New Jersey, you have companies that send salespeople out pretty much every week, knocking on your door,
Yeah.
talking about solar. Personally, for me, in New Jersey in particular, where you don't get full days of sunlight,
Hmm.
I'm not sure if the benefit would outweigh the cost, would outweigh the benefit, would outweigh the cost here. But definitely in Jamaica and other
Yeah,
islands where you're getting
sunshine. It's Sunshine
sometimes more
Island.
than sunshine. Let's use Portmore for an example. I grew up in Portmore. I think Portmore gets probably close to 12 to 13 hours per day of full sun, of full sun. So
Yeah.
I don't think you're gonna have any issues there. Again, for the persons joining us on the live stream, please, we want to see your questions. We want to hear your questions and your comments as we go along. Another question I have, and this one goes back to Tash. What specific services um, does Connect Critical Infrastructure Solutions have now that you can readily go out there and sell tomorrow for a business owner listening now from a service perspective? And I'll have Dwayne answer the question as well, but I'm going to have Tash go first.
From a well, we are branding ourselves as a consultancy company first. So
Okay.
when we go into a space, a commercial space, it's what we propose is going to be very dependent on what the customer needs. So we'll look at your infrastructure, we'll look at what it is that you have set up now. If it is very good, we'll suggest ways how to use what you have better. If it is that we think that you need additional equipment, then we will propose those equipment, but it's very dependent on the customer. And but one thing I can broadly say, as Dwayne had mentioned earlier, is monitoring is always necessary. So I would recommend monitoring all around. Once you have a critical space, you need to be monitoring how it's working. Whether you think it's working significantly as efficiently as it should, your data is always best to show you and to prove that yeah, we're definitely doing what we need to do.
Saving your money.
Yeah, but
Definitely.
Dwayne can speak to when it is that we've consulted and you need more. And Dwayne can speak to what those specific services can be.
Okay, no problem. Dwayne.
Not much to add. Not much to add at all. And you are indeed correct. It does depend on what you have, because sometimes we can make what it is that you have work better for you. Sometimes it may require some change out. And whatever it is that we do, it's as Tash should have mentioned, it's in a consultative way. We don't just come in and say, okay, look at this and you need to change this. What it is that your concerns are, what it is that you're trying to achieve. How long do you have? How long have you been experiencing these issues? So we have a conversation and we sit down and we look at what it is that you have, where it is that you want to go. There may be some low hanging fruit, as I mentioned. In some cases, it might be okay, the thermostats are too low. So the place is too cold. You can save $1 there and watch it from there. So it's really from a consultative perspective. And the monitoring is important, and sometimes we have seen customers that are doing very well. They do everything, the set point is up, they have automatic lock off of the air condition units after x amount of hours, it don't start too early. So you have a lot of customers out there that are very conscious and they are doing a lot, and they just, some of the time I think that some of those customers want an extra boost, somebody independent to come and say, good job, good job. But for those that really do need the help, we do approach it from a consultative perspective as well as what I would say an educational perspective. We share data with you, we share case studies, we look at what it is that we have, we hold your hand through the entire process and even afterward.
Okay, great. Now, I have a question that's bubbling in my mind. Now, a lot of businesses and customers, in terms of the infrastructure that they have, is what we call legacy infrastructure.
Hmm.
Old fridges, old ACs. Pretty much everything is dated, and as we all know, as we go forward, and the global crisis that we're in terms of just emissions and all of that, everything is being produced now, is being produced more energy efficient, quote unquote, right? What is the first step for those type of customers who have pretty much all legacy equipment that is not energy efficient, equipment that's costing them? Do you recommend a rip and replace? Do you recommend certain solutions? How would a consultation like that go?
Excellent question, and I've seen that a couple of times. Let us be honest, if it is that you do have such legacy equipment, it's not that you're awash with money that you can just change them at a whim. So the approach is always twofold. How well are they being maintained to make sure that they're operating as efficient as possible, as old as they may be, and usage. That is the two-prong approach that we always start with. And we also look at, say for example, you're spending $10 on your utility bill. If I can save you $2 on that utility bill, then over time you save that $2 and put that towards replacing. So it's a process, and we take our time to hold their hands and we walk through it with them. But the first two things, look at how it is that you're using it and look at how they are being maintained to ensure that they are at peak efficiency.
All right. So I have a question for you on the flip side of that same coin.
Hmm.
If a customer is just building as a commercial space now, they're going to be buying the best, the brightest, the newest efficient fridges, AC. Do they still need a kind of critical infrastructure solutions to come in and help them to even be more efficient? And what does that look like?
The same exact thing for the legacy customers. The same exact thing. How are you using it? Some of the times we have something that's new and we say, no, it's new and it's so efficient.
Mm-hmm.
It saves energy itself. Nope. You still need to monitor how it is that you use it.
Mm-hmm.
And more importantly, we talk about maintenance to make sure that it's operating efficiently with some of the legacy equipment. But more importantly, with the new equipment, you need to protect that investment. And you think about, if it is that both of us were to drive into a car mart, we buy a new car. If you're not taking care of that car, if I wash my car every day, I get it maintained, and you don't, after say 3 to 5 years, it will be obvious which car is 2 years old and which car looks like it's 4 years old. So
Mm-hmm.
even if it's new, you want to ensure that you protect that investment. And a part of doing that is doing your regular maintenance and keeping an eye to ensure that any faults that are there that will cause you to lose that bit of efficiency because it's new, it's identified and corrected immediately.
Okay. Our next question. What kind of dashboards are being used to improve industrial energy management?
The dashboard is really around energy, and as I said, that's segregation in terms of the use. So what is using the energy and over what period of time? So we look at the HVAC and we may look at other infrastructure that's in the building. So is the HVAC only coming on and operating when it is that you need it to? Is it that someone needs to use a meeting room on the weekend? Do I really need to turn on all the air conditioning units for just that one meeting room? Can I find another space that is more segregated, smaller, where I can control that? So whatever dashboard is employed, it has to be as precise as possible to ensure that whatever it is that's being used, regardless of the time, whether it's during a normal 9 to 5, whether it's on a weekend, whether it's on a holiday, so you can see where some of those leakages are. You may be looking back on your data after a long weekend and you say, but why is it that so much energy was being consumed on the third floor of this building? You go back, nobody was there, but oh, we forgot to turn off the AC. Those are some of the things. So again, monitoring that data, looking at that energy,
Mhm.
granular as possible, is the way to go.
Okay, I have a direct message for both of you actually. Question. How long have you both been working in the energy management field? I'll go to Tash first.
Since 2018. What's that number?
That's
Since
what
2018.
2018, 4 years,
Yes.
4 years. Okay, thank you. Dwayne, how long have you been in the energy management field?
No,
In
2014.
2014, Tash. Okay, so
2014,
I'm
sorry.
corrected. Correct,
2014.
correct.
Yes.
All right, 2014.
this,
Dwayne, over to
despite my
you.
despite my youthful looks, next year will be 20 years that I'm in the
20
industry.
years.
Yep.
Wow. So basically, it's safe to say that you are a energy management consultant expert.
I've, I've seen a lot of things, and the good thing about this industry is that as much as you'll see people say that they're an expert, there's still a lot to learn.
To
And it's
learn.
an
Mhm.
ever evolving field. As I mentioned, even what it is that used to be with the ROI for solar panels, what it was 5 years ago is different from what it is now. The technology continues to improve and continues to evolve. So 20 years is a long time, but I'm just so excited to see what the next 5 years is going to look like. And again, another 20 years.
All right, interesting comments. Next one for you. What has been in your 20 years experience? What has been the biggest transitional change in energy management over the last 20 years, in your view?
Hmm. What the biggest change that I've seen is more PCs, because as it is that we get more corporate, before now you have cell phones that are more powerful than any PC that existed 10 years ago.
Correct.
So for me, that has been the largest. Before, when it is that we used to size or to configure power supplies, there is a figure that we used to use. For example, we used to say 500 watts for every PC. Now
Mhm,
it's down to 150, and that's just
mhm.
over the past 10 years. So imagine where we will be 5 years from now. It may be just down to the size of what it is that we're using on our mobile phones.
That's the
And
next question. Where do you see the future in terms of energy management? What is the next big thing from your company and in energy management space locally?
so for the energy management space, what we're seeing is a shift. And Tashana mentioned it earlier about some institutions shutting down the brick and mortar. A lot of times, what they're trying to do is to reduce their energy footprint.
Mhm.
NCB, which is a local bank, one of the larger local banks, what they have done, they're started to have banking machines where you can do so much more, where you don't necessarily need to go to the teller. You can do a lot more. The flip side to that is that that consumes a lot more energy. So then you move it from one location and then you put it somewhere else. So it may be shrinking in the office, but for some of those services that we use, it's growing there. So that's one of the things that I'll see that will continue to change, and less for people. And for what we see is just continue to keep abreast of what's happening, try to innovate as best as possible,
Mhm.
identify our customer needs sometime even before they think they'll need this. Look at what the trend is. If it's happening in Costa Rica and it's happening very well, it's only a matter of time before it gets here, or even if it's happening in Sweden or if it's happening in Brazil. Wherever it is, we always try to be the experts, as we try to say, and not just say it, but be abreast with the information. So when we're posed with questions like these, we are prepared to answer them and to deliver on those concerns.
Great. Tashana, we know you're the financial person in the room. From a percentage target, and this is just a general question here, for you and your business, of course, and what other person should be thinking about, what would be the ideal reduce in an energy bill, month on month or annually? What would be a target or a safe target for business customers
Um,
in terms of percentage reduction?
per- Percentage, I would say mm, probably 6%
Six
month over
percent
month.
annually, month over month. Okay.
Well, annually it would combine as annually, but yeah, you can, when it is that you start to implement some of these behaviors and closing the doors and those small things, then I think this 6% is a good target to look at.
And is that 6% attainable in the first month? If you put in, if you guys come in, you consult, you put in certain services, solutions, maintenance, Windows best practices. Is it safe to say that that customer will realize that 6% saving within the first 30 days?
I think Dwayne, who looks at the actual figures when it is that he goes into the customer space, when it is that he's implemented these systems, can tell if it is, how best, because I was speaking more on telling my employees, listen, you need to close the door so I can see a reduction in my personal light bill and those things. But when it comes to the critical spaces where, because we don't, personally in our office, we're not a big data center where we have a lot of servers and things running and all of that, so that percentage might not follow through. So Dwayne, can you speak to when it is that you have those high equipment, high volume equipment and density, and what that percentage would look like?
And I think you're actually spot on with that 6%. In my experience, and Jermaine would have mentioned customers who are already doing a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Infrastructure, you have new equipment, you're maintaining it. That 6%, I put it to you, that it's largely behavioral change. So you're exactly right when you mention that. Don't put the set point so high, close the door behind you. Bits and pieces like that, I guarantee you 6% is easily attainable. And again, we're not talking about um, data centers, we're talking about regular commercial buildings. And yes, I do definitely think that is achievable
For
within the first
behavioral
2 or 3 months. Behavioral changes, definitely.
Okay, great. I know we spoke a lot about energy and energy management doing, but could you tell our audience and anybody listening some of the
Mhm.
other things, other services and things that you provide through your company?
Great question. Largely, we are in the data center space and everything around the periphery of the data center. Now, our company, as it suggests, is critical solutions. And what may be critical to a supermarket is different from what is critical to a data center. It may be different from what is critical to a banking sector. It really does vary. And for us, that critical space includes the monitoring, whether it's energy monitoring or it's environmental monitoring. And a bit about that is that, for example, we had a meeting today with a supermarket chain where they were losing produce. Over the night, the air condition unit has failed. Nobody knows. Or the refrigerators have failed. Nobody knows. You come in the next day, the produce is spoiled. That's temperature monitoring for that space. We do data cabling, electrical cabling, the regular stuff, UPS, cooling, both comfort cooling and precision cooling. The difference with those quickly is comfort cooling is for people, precision cooling is for critical equipment. Anything that's electronic that needs cooling, that's precision cooling. We do that. As you mentioned, we do make those spaces more efficient, specifically with data center with stuff like aisle containment, um, maintenance programs, whether it's for your cooling equipment, whether it's for your entire data center. We do fiber cabling, which is a part of data cabling, but a little bit more specific. We do fire suppression and consultation and fire suppression. We pretty much take care of anything that's critical to your space and critical to your environment. We have a suite of products to support it.
All right, guys, and for more information, please visit their company website to get more information on who they are and what they do. So, to Dwayne, this question is for both of you. I'm going to go to Dwayne first, then Tash. Someone may say, well, there are other companies out there that do similar type of services. What makes Connect Critical Infrastructure Solutions different from other players in the market?
Most of the other players in the market were colleagues, we're in the same space. So I say that as a preface, not to say that they don't offer excellent service, whether it's sales service or after sales service. But one of the things that we do that we try to separate is more from a consultative perspective. I've seen in the past where customers will say, okay, for an example, I want a UPS to protect my server, but the supplier knows that it's a competitive environment, so they go with the cheapest. The cheapest may not be what is ideal for that
Mhm.
customer, and the customer may be losing equipment, but what is the root cause of it? So we go in, we hold their hands, we go from a consultative perspective, we go from an educational perspective. Customers are buying things that they don't really know much about. We try as best as possible to educate and advise them and hope that they make the decision to come to us. We're not always the cheapest, and that is something that I tell everybody, and we don't need to be. But what it is that we offer is much more than a product. We offer a service, we offer peace of mind, we offer confidence. Your job is not to worry about what your UPS or your cooling unit is doing. Your job is to operate your business. Leave that worry to us, and that's essentially what I think we offer over our competitors.
Thank you, Dwayne. Tash.
So we've spoken a lot about the approach from the consultative perspective, and that is the beginning of what it is that we do. We do when it is that we have decided that this is definitely what you need, and the customer says, I agree, you've explained it clearly, it's not all numbers and letters and all of that. Because from somebody, as I said, I'm in the finance area, and the technical side of it is not always clear, but the team explains it in a way so the customer can understand as well as myself. And then after that has been decided, we're also the person who is going to order that equipment, ensure that it's certified. We're going to be the ones who install it. We're going to be the ones who check up on it. We're going to be the ones after the purchase order is done to ensure that you're okay. If something else is needed, if it is that you want somebody to just come in and check, we are that person from beginning to end to a lifelong relationship, because what we build are relationships. We're not just getting customers because we want customers, because we're trying to get customers just for the sake of it. We try to build relationships, and we try to
Correct.
have these yeah, I lost my train of thought, but that is
Customers,
who we are.
customers, relationship, marriage, and not a one night stand is what you're
Yeah,
looking for,
exactly,
right?
exactly,
Exactly.
Okay,
Yes.
exactly.
great. So Dwayne, before we wrap up, guys, Dwayne, can you tell our audience and anybody listening how you can actually reach out to you and your team if required?
Sure. Our website is always available and at ccisja.com. We're also on Twitter at critical876. And you can always call us. Our numbers are all listed on the website, and you can touch base with us anytime. Call me, call Tashana, any of us, and we'll be glad to support you in whatever way you need.
Very
Great,
happy.
great, 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 guys. I think this was a great discussion. I definitely learned a lot tonight about energy management, and a little bit more about your business as well. I'm hoping our viewing audience got a chance to understand a little better about energy management consumption, both from the commercial business side and from the personal side as well. And we did answer the question that we promised, that we are not in an energy crisis. We are in the middle of an energy concern that we need to stay very close to and continue to hold forth. And hopefully, the situation in Europe doesn't get any worse, and oil prices globally will stabilize, and things can go back to some semblance of normal. So, guys, thank you again for joining us. This is Canute Consulting Live. I want to thank my guests again, Sean Brown and Dwayne Watson, for joining us tonight and giving us this thought-provoking conversation around energy management, and that we're not in an energy crisis. No need to be alarmed, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day, and God bless. Look out for the next episode of Candid Consulting Live. Thank you.
Thank